Hi guys, this is Cezary Zieniuk from IBCCS Tax. Again, we're in Dubai, Business Bay, United Arab Emirates, and this video is about banking. What are the requirements to open bank account in Arab Emirates for physical persons, for companies? Why is it beneficial to do banking? And in general, we'll describe the banking infrastructure in UAE. So the business environment and the banking infrastructure is very well developed in UAE, and there are also plenty of banks. There are local banks such as Emirates NBD, Mashrek, Dubai Islamic Bank, Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank, Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank. So there are plenty of decent banks where you can do banking for business and as individual as well. And also, which is a very important factor for many people moving from abroad, there are plenty of locally licensed banks from abroad. For example, HSBC, BNP Paribas, Citibank, Bank of China, and a couple of other banks. So the person coming from UK, for example, or Hong Kong that is banking with HSBC can be sure that he will find decent banking here as well. But I'm pretty sure once you relocate to UAE, or once at least you will start using the facilities here, you'll be very convinced to use local banks because they are great. We have opened plenty of accounts for our clients, for individuals, for corporations, whether local or foreign. I also have bank accounts here and I'm very happy. Let's start with description of the process of opening of the bank accounts for individuals, for physical persons. Very often our clients ask us a question: is it possible to open a bank account for non-residents? So somebody living in Cyprus or in Georgia, in Russia, in Poland, etc., that just wants to use banking of UAE because it's very stable and safe and it has great infrastructure. But for some reason he doesn't want to relocate here. So is this possible? The quick answer is yes, but of course it depends on the circumstances. Very often banks might ask for a certain deposit or for some extended KYC procedure if we're dealing with non-residents, but in general it's possible. However, it is much easier to open the account for residents. So you don't have to be a national of UAE, you can relocate to UAE, get your visa, and in this case the process of the opening of the bank account will be much easier and you can literally do it in one day or in a couple of days. And we also have clients that are not physically relocating here, but they are getting the visas and the Emirates ID only so it's easier to do business within UAE, and so it's easier to open bank accounts. So you can consider getting your visa and Emirates ID only for the purpose of doing banking within UAE, whether personal or corporate. In terms of the documents required for opening the individual account, it's pretty easy. For non-residents, you will need passport, utility bill, proof of address, sometimes CV, and of course documents proving the source of your wealth and source of your income. So you might be asked for statements related to dividends, your personal tax returns, your salary extract or payroll, etc., depending on the case. And if we are talking about requirements for locals, so for residents of UAE, this process is much easier. We just need your passport, Emirates ID, and proof of residency. Usually the banks do not ask for additional KYC or documents related to the income, source of wealth, etc. And if they ask, it's very broad. So as you can see, it's definitely much easier to open the bank account for residents. The success rate that we have and the success rate of the industry in general is practically 100% for residents, and the requirements are close to zero. So as you can see, it might be very easy to do banking in UAE. Now let's describe the main facilities that the UAE banks offer to the clients. So the banking offers standard accounts, current accounts, they offer savings accounts, wealth management exists here, private banking also exists. So if you are a high net worth individual, you will find a very good service here by using private banking or wealth management services. And this is also the question we get very often from our clients: is there any investment service within the bank services? And the answer is yes. So many banks, they offer brokerage accounts or different kind of investment services. So yes, you can get the benefits of making money while having the funds in the UAE bank. And also, of course, standard facilities such as credit cards, debit cards, checks, cash facilities, and of course loans and mortgages. What about loans and mortgages? Is it easy to get the loan in UAE? Is it easy to get the mortgage? How it works? So UAE has a very friendly environment, and the government is trying to attract different investors and expats to enter UAE and to do business here, and of course to keep the money in the banks. So it's quite easy to get the loan. Basically, the general requirement is that if you are a resident, you can get up to 80% of the value of the asset that you are buying. For example, if we're talking about the mortgage or a car, and in this case, you usually have to be a resident of UAE for 2 years. If you're a non-resident, the general application is that the bank can cover 50% of the loan. So the deposit when you buy a property, for example, has to be 50%, and you don't need to reside in UAE. You can also get other loan facilities. You can get the loan for your business, you can get the loan to buy a car. What is very important to mention here that financing facilities exist in the bank, but not only. When you buy a property, for example, most of the developers, they offer installments. So you pay a small deposit to purchase a property, for example, 10, 20, 30%, and then the rest of the payments are done in interest-free installments. So when the property is, for example, going to be finished in 2 years, then the developer can offer you installments for 24 months. But not only that, very often developers offer interest even post-handover. So let's assume you buy the property and the completion date is 2026. Now the developer can give you installments for a few years even after handing over the property. So you might start living in this property, and let's say for the next 1, 2, 3 years, you can pay interest-free loan to the developer. Sometimes it's interest-free, sometimes the developer charges a very small percentage, for example 1%. But in general, it's a great incentive because as you can see, you don't have to wait a few years for your property to be ready. And you don't have to ask the bank for the loan. So you can buy the property, wait until it's finished. When it's handed over, you move there and you pay the loan installments to the developer, like to the bank, but usually with no interest. And similar schemes might also be applicable for the cars. Some companies producing cars offer interest-free installments. For example, Mercedes-Benz, I recently saw an advert in Business Bay. They offer 0 interest installments. So you can buy a Mercedes GLE like on the advertisement, or a G-Class or any other car, and enjoy interest-free installments. So you don't need to spend all the cash. And this is very important for startups and for newcomers, not to spend all the money. And also another fact is that the cars are very cheap. So even if you decide to buy a car from the dealership which is used, it's usually priced at a much lower rate than in the continental Europe or even United States. So what about cash? We all love money, we all love cash, and fortunately the cash situation in UAE is very good, which means that the banks are accepting cash, developers are accepting cash, you can buy cars for cash, and in general there is no such a strict rules like in Western Europe, where you have limits to, for cash transactions, etc. There are certain limits in case you make payments of USDs or euros, but in general, if you make payments in cash in United Arab Emirates dirhams, the local currency, the limits are much less, or sometimes there are no limits. So a good advice to somebody that wants to deposit cash to the bank: convert your dollars to cash. But of course, this is a very generic information. We are not giving any advice to anyone to pay in cash. We are not giving advice to transport cash to UAE. There are certain AML requirements around the world, and each case should be, discussed individually with the bank or with the purchaser. So it's not always possible to get a chunk of cash and bring it to UAE. But as I mentioned, it's cash-friendly, money-friendly jurisdiction. So we know many cases where clients were coming and paying large amount of money for the property in cash. So it is possible, long story short. Now let's briefly discuss the topic of cryptocurrencies. It's a very hot topic as there are plenty of crypto millionaires and billionaires in Dubai. People are moving to UAE because of the tax-friendly environment. As you know, there is no capital gains tax and no personal income tax, so this is why there are plenty of crypto investors and businessmen here, because they don't pay tax and because you can use all the great facilities that Dubai offers. But what about the regulations? So cryptocurrency is regulated in UAE, as we mentioned. There are even certain facilities like, for example, DAO, Digital Asset Oasis Free Zone in Ras Al Khaimah, that offers licensing and different facilities for launching crypto businesses. So UAE is generally tax friendly, and the jurisdiction is basically trying to be as crypto friendly as possible. I mean, we wouldn't have all these millionaires living in UAE doing crypto business if it was not possible. But to answer the question about the banking system in general, as in the whole world, is not too crypto friendly. However, we have seen so many cases where the banks in UAE were accepting cryptocurrencies and crypto business included, that people who have earned their cryptos in a genuine way, they have nothing to worry about. I mean, even if for some reason conservative UAE local bank would not accept their money, there are plenty of solutions for crypto traders and crypto investors outside UAE. In Switzerland, in Liechtenstein, there are plenty of EMIs that will also accept money from cryptos. So even if you relocate to Dubai, and even if for some reason your local bank will not accept the money from cryptos, we have solutions for that. Let's go now to the topic of corporate banking, so bank accounts for companies. The facilities are great in UAE, as we have described, and the same facilities of banking, including private banking, wealth management, cards, checks, and everything, it relates to corporate banking. So now the question is it possible to open a bank account for your company in UAE, in the UAE bank? Of course, it depends. For most of the entities, yes. The only scenario where we could face problems is when we have an offshore company based in UAE. Case by case, we can assist to open the bank account, or banks will agree to open the bank account if there is a rationale behind opening it. But in general, as we mentioned in the other videos, offshore companies are quite difficult in terms of banking. So we need to try very hard and make a lot of efforts to open bank accounts for offshore companies. But this is not the case for other types of entities in UAE. So if you do business as a sole trader, if you have a mainland LLC, if you do business through a local free zone company with the license and relevant substance, banking is very easy. Bank accounts are easily opened. There is no need for very strict compliance, and in general UAE is welcoming foreign investors and startup businesses and anyone coming from abroad to invest in the country, which means they should allow the banking to be done by foreigners, and which is the case. So as long as you have decent business, as long as you can provide basic KYC documents, your bank account will be opened. So what documents are required to open a corporate bank account? First of all, UAE banks will require the basic KYC documents of the company. So memorandum and articles of association, license copy, all the certificates of the company, and that's it. Obviously, if we talk about compliance, we also need to include the beneficial owners, directors, and shareholders. So from these people who are in the company, the banks will require also basic KYC, passport, Emirates ID if they have it, utility bill, proof of address, and basic source of funds. So it's a standard procedure like in other banks in Europe. What we should also consider when opening the bank account for the company here is to have adequate substance. Nowadays, same like in the other parts of the world, the banking got more sophisticated and the banks are looking for reasons to open the account. And this is the same case here. So if you have a free zone company, for example, the bank might ask you, why do you need the account? Do you have any substance in UAE? Do you have an office rented? Do you have a local director? Do you have staff? Do you have assets? Do you have a website? So all these things that I mentioned are case by case examined by the bank. And in general, if you're performing a real business activity, if you really have your business in UAE, then you should worry about nothing, because every business needs an office, every business needs a website, employees, etc. For companies and clients that try to do remote businesses and they do not plan to invest in substance in UAE, the situation might be a bit worse, because the banks might not want to open the account. But again, we are here to advise you. We can tell you exactly in which elements of substance do you need to invest, because we know the banks. We work with all the major banks here, whether local or international, and they tell us what kind of clients they accept. So feel free to reach out if you need the advice on in which bank you should open the account, and how the process will look like, and what do you need for the bank account opening. One last thing I want to mention about banking, and this is the question that we get from the clients from abroad, is there any requirement in terms of deposit or turnover to open the account? Because banking system is great, it's quite sophisticated, it offers great facilities, but because of that, people think that banks have very high requirements to accept clients here. This is not the case. So in most of the cases, when you open the account as a local resident or as a company with having the residency here, there is no need for any balance or turnover. The bank will ask you during the compliance process how much money you plan to deposit, what will be the turnover, what will be the parties of transactions, etc. But in general, banks do not ask for any minimum balance. However, for certain clients, for example, for offshore companies or for non-residents, especially if we're talking about foreign companies, it might be possible that the bank will ask for additional documentation. Maybe the bank will ask you to use their investment services. So sometimes if you buy insurance policy in the bank, or if you buy certain brokerage services, the bank will be willing to open the account. Or if they consider you as a high-risk client, they might ask you to deposit relevant amount of money. So to summarize, as you can see, UAE has a great facilities in terms of banking. It's quite easy to open bank accounts for individuals, sometimes for foreigners as well, and it's also easy to open bank accounts for companies. The only thing you have to do is to comply. And obviously, you need the right contacts, for example, our firm, and you need to choose the right people to handle your banking. It's very crucial, same as in countries like Cyprus, to go to the right branch and to have the right branch manager, because this branch manager will make your life easier. We don't recommend to anyone to go randomly to the bank and try to open the accounts, because you might get somebody that is very strict, or you might get rejection at the spot. So come to the right place. We are here to assist you. If you need more information about UAE, taxation, relocation, check our social media, follow our YouTube channel, and see you in Dubai.